Joining me now is John Brennan, former director of the CIA and an NBC News senior national security and intelligence analyst. Long title there. Good to see you, Director. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
So what is your reaction, Director Brennan, to learning this new reporting by the New York Times that, by all accounts, Israeli officials may have seen Hamas's battle plan a year before this attack?
Well, Kristen, I think the reporting is shocking, quite frankly. It's exceedingly rare to obtain a copy of your enemy's battle plan, especially more than a year in advance of an attack. And so it did demonstrate that the Israelis had access to Hamas's terrorist core. But clearly, they didn't take advantage of having that battle plan. That document should have been driving Israel's collection efforts in the past year. They could have made that determination last year that what was in the plan was very aspirational and that Hamas didn't have the capability to do that. But they should have been very diligent in terms of looking at whether Hamas was gaining the capabilities, was gaining traction in terms of moving forward with the different parts of that battle plan. And it shouldn't have just rested on a shelf. It should have been used by Israeli collection experts as well as analysts. And I think as the reporting shows, there were analysts who tried to bring to the attention of senior officials, senior Israeli defense officials, that they were seeing some evidence that elements of that battle plan were being operationalized in a planned preparation for an ultimate attack.
What does it say, and we don't know the answer to this, but given how closely Israeli and U.S. intelligence typically communicate, is it possible, is it likely that U.S. intelligence would have seen this information as well, Director?
Well, quite frankly, I think U.S. intelligence should have. The U.S.-Israeli intelligence relationship is probably among the closest, if not the closest in the world. We work very closely with Israeli intelligence. And what I think Israeli intelligence should have done was to see whether or not their closest intelligence partner had any intelligence that could, in fact, verify some of the information in that Hamas document, and to see whether or not U.S. collection could, in fact, be directed to determine whether or not Hamas was actually trying to, again, operationalize that plan. So I don't know how broadly or widely it was shared within Israeli intelligence circles, and I certainly don't know whether or not it was shared outside of Israel. But this is the type of document, since there doesn't seem to be any doubt, at least according to reporting, that it was a legitimate Hamas document that was being used inside of Hamas. And that's why Israeli intelligence and IDF officials should have been able to take advantage of that opportunity by getting as many views as possible about what.
And we are now joined by Ronen Bergman of the New York Times, who is the reporter behind this stunning piece of reporting. Ronen, thank you so much for joining us. Take us inside your reporting. How did this happen? And how high did this go? Because you say it's not clear that Prime Minister Netanyahu saw this information.
Yes, so hi, this report is written and investigated with my dear colleague, Adam Goldman. In gist, this was obtained after massive efforts of Israeli intelligence more than a year ago. It has detailing, I would say chilling details about what Hamas knew about Israel, the fortification of the border, the different towers for cameras, these submachine guns controlled from remote, the different arrangement that was supposed to make this fence that was built above ground and subterranean invincible. The fence made Israeli security forces in a way sleepy. They thought they were enchanted. They thought that nothing can take the fence out, and they put less forces, less sharp on the border. The Hamas realized that when you read something like 40 pages of this plan called the codename by Israel, Jericho Wall, you understand that Hamas knew a lot about Israel And I suspect that at least some bits of that intelligence could not come, not from open source, not from social media, not from commercial satellite, not even from people who came from Gaza to work in Israel and were recruited by Hamas. I believe some of that comes directly from the core of Israeli defense establishment and could not come from anywhere else. I assume one day we'll hear about someone investigating how Hamas could get hold of this. But it's not just intelligence. It's about the translation of intelligence to massive raid. Some almost 2,000 Nukhba Hamas commandos to break the fence in 60 different places at the same time. Use paraglides and drones to take out the towers of the machine guns and the communication centers and the cameras. Pave the way to another force to rush in and run over the division brigade, the division headquarters that is in charge of the security of all of the front, paving the way for hundreds of different teams of Hamas gunmen to storm into Israel, each team with a different order to go to that village or that party, the pictures that we see now of the Nova party, the Nova raid, and kill and loot and rape and massacre and abduct. But it's all dependent on Jericho Wall, the ability to storm the fence, use artillery and rockets to divert attention, and create operational fog that would confuse the military and would allow the gunmen enough time to infiltrate Israel. Once they take this fence down, it was too late.
Ronen, what you're describing is really in chilling detail what we saw play out. It's really just extraordinary. Do you know if the Israelis shared this with U.S. intelligence? Director Brennan is saying that that is what one would anticipate would happen. And to what extent has this diminished trust in Israel's intelligence?
Well, I'm sure that Israeli citizens didn't need to wait. You see the pictures. I've been there since the second day. It's horrible. It's horrific. Nobody needs the tiny details to understand that this is a massive failure of intelligence, failure of the military to protect the border, and without intelligence, failure of the military to get enforcement. But we just need also to bear in mind and put things in proportion that this document was not neglected, was not disregarded, but it was assessed by the best intelligence analysts in the military and in Shin Bet, the domestic secret service, as a wishful thinking, as an inspiration plan. They call it a compass for the building of the force. So it's not about what Hamas can do now. It's about what Hamas wants to do in the future. And the gap, those analysts say, between where they want to be and where they are is massive. They cannot, another document says, they cannot operate more than 70 gunmen, deploy them at the same time. Jericho Wall is talking about 2,000 in 60 places. Israel failed to understand the advancement of Hamas to narrow that gap until closing it down and launch the attack on October 7th.
Director Brennan, can I just have you respond to what you just heard? What are your key takeaways from what Ronen has mapped out, these chilling, extraordinary details?
Well, two takeaways. One, as Ronen said, the document contained a lot of information about Israeli security, presence, and capabilities. And this was over a year ago. And so it did show that Hamas had some access to that information that was not publicly available. And that's a big question. How did they get access to that information that could allow them to then chart their battle plan? And then secondly, it's again quite clear that Israel's assessment of Hamas's capabilities remains static. They believed more than a year ago that this was only aspirational, that Hamas did not have these capabilities. But they should have constantly reviewed and went back to that assessment to see whether or not Hamas was gaining and obtaining those capabilities and preparing for the onslaught that took place on October 7th. So I don't question their determination or their assessment that was done more than a year ago that this was aspirational, but clearly it wasn't just aspirational on October 7th, and that's the failure of the system overall.
Well, thank you both so much, John Brennan, Ronen Bergman, for taking us inside your reporting. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.